Hello, this is Mr. Patrick's Corner. Today we're going to talk about farming in Russia. Well, there's an American living there with his wife and his four children, his four girls, and he farms in the bottom of, on the borderline between China and Russia in the south. He's got about 250 acres and he has a little farm. Russia, Vladimir Putin and Russia have been trying to encourage Western farmers to go. Now, his name is Justice Walker. Right now I'm a little worried about him because I follow him on his YouTube videos and he hasn't been around. I'm worried that maybe he left or he's basically being very silent because he's not a political person. His career started where everybody noticed him was in 2014 when they closed off agricultural imports to Russia. He got on let's backtrack a little bit. Justice Walker came to Russia in the 90s with his parents. They were evangelical preachers, Christian preachers. And he came here, he was 11 years old, and he learned Russian the hard way. Basically, he went out, played with Russian kids, learned Russian, and his accent is very good. According to my wife, she says he has a beautiful accent. And he looks like a typical American. He's got this wide-eyed innocence that shows up wherever we are. It's a kind of a natural trait. It's like the Canadians say, hey, all the time. That's another story. But he set up a little farm, and then he moved to another farm, and finally, for health reasons, he settled in this beautiful country. It's got plenty of deep, rich topsoil. He raises goats, he makes cheese, and he sells it. Well, this Russian reporter came to visit him about the sanctions. And he said, good, that'll be good for Russian farmers because we'll be able to sell more cheese because we don't have to compete with the Europeans. And it turned out he was right. He didn't really mean it that way, but he's the typical wide-eyed American. And he has this little farm. And they raise sheep, they raise goats for milk, and cheese for milk, and he makes cheese. And his wife has a little side business with making herbal teas. And they're doing well. Then the Ukraine and Russian conflict came into being. I still don't understand why Vladimir Putin even went to war. He wants to control the Black Sea. Why? He doesn't control the Black Sea because you can't get into it only through the Dardanelles, and the Turks guard that. And I just, it's a warm water port, but it isn't what is necessary. Vladimir Putin's never going to give up Crimea because that's been Russian. And I heard this wonderful joke. One Russian said, Vladimir Putin, one of the newspaper guys, the newsman, said Vladimir Putin wants to be the new Peter the Great. And a Russian popped out and said, well, he's kind of short. Vladimir Putin is 5'5", 5'6", and Peter the Great was over 7 foot tall. So now you understand the joke. Well, Justice Walker is a small farmer, and he liked the way the farming setup was set up in Russia because it's designed for what size farm you have. Your regulations are simple for small farms, a little more complex if you're medium size. And the more farmers you can get there, the better off you are. And guess what? They can buy farmland for $250 an acre. Now in Europe, that's $4,500 an acre. That's why if Vladimir Putin hadn't had any issues with Ukraine, he probably would have gotten a lot of Dutch farmers because they could sell their lands for $4,500 an acre. Then they could have moved to Russia. And they would have been successful because they're cheese makers. The Dutch cheese is famous all over the world. And because they have their setup, so this idea of nitrogen in they're going to have to take nitrogen out of the air because they're producing too much nitrogen. Well, I think that's all hooey to begin with. It's just like recyclables. They were sending all the recyclables to China. Then China says, well, guess what, guys? We don't need them anymore, so you can keep them. And that is the problem. We have these guys, they don't think about anything. It's spur of the moment type stuff. We could recycle plastic in this country, and we could do a good job of it. But it's a more expensive proposition because we have stricter laws. We don't want our land contaminated. You know how they strip wire in China, you just close your eyes and say, my God, it's the chemicals released from the burning of the plastic off the wire. It's a wonderfully messed up system. And they're not thinking ahead 20 or 30 years. They're getting contaminants in there. Their people are dying. Well, we have now a chance we're trying to make peace with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is not a nice man, and pushing him is not getting us anywhere. Well, we need to figure out a way to settle this problem. The Eastern Ukrainian Russians are not going to settle because they're proud people. They come from the Cossacks, the clans. It's like Tubretsky and the Don. They've been there for thousands of years. They're the toughest fighters ever. They didn't take a lot of baloney from the Poles. They didn't take a lot of baloney from the Tsar. They were in this love-hate relationship. The Turks came in, the Ottomans. They didn't take anything from them. This is a question of what are we going to do? Are we going to keep pushing these people? Are we going to keep sending weapons there? Well, Mr. Biden sent another $230 million. Now the Koreans are sending tanks to the to the Poles. The Poles are sending their old tanks over to the Ukrainians. The thing is that nobody seems to understand that Ukraine has a very small population in regards to Russia. The Russians have over 130 million people. Now, who do you think can take a hit in regards to losing men? You can definitely see it's not going to be the Russians. Ukraine has 40 million people and they're losing 400 or 500 a day. That's a terrible loss. They're also going to lose people that go to Poland. A lot of these refugees are not going to come back because Ukraine is a very poor country. And the Russians are losing a brain drain too. Believe it or not, if we were smart and we really wanted to put pressure on Vladimir Putin, we should allow more immigration from Russia. It's very simple. They have intelligent, well-studied folk that could help in the medical community, nurses, doctors, scientists. You also have engineers. Russian engineers are very, very good, and and a lot of them want to leave. And if they leave, we make it easy. Well, right after in 1922, we had over 1.5 million Russians refugees from the battles and the wars, from between the whites and the reds. We actually left Russia in 1922. We were at war with Russia, the United States, that wonderful freedom-loving country. We were at war wanted to change their government. How many times have we heard that? Well, we don't change governments. That's a lot of baloney. we fought the Russians from 1917 to 1922, along with the French, the British, and the Japanese. Now, are we going to continue on doing these stunts? And Russia is paying the price, yes. And they say, well, their economy is collapsing. Well, it isn't the first time they've tried that routine. Like I said in my last video, they closed off all economic help going to Russia. Well, the Russians, they adapted. When the war ended, 95% of the Russian people were illiterate. 95%. And don't smirk and smile, because the United States right now, 35% of our people are semi-illiterate, which is beyond belief that we can't educate our people. Now, what happens? Have you ever seen a Sikorsky helicopter? Well, Sikorsky left Russia, and he started a company here building airplanes, and then started into helicopters. That was his first love. We are going to benefit if we can allow more Russians to come here. The same with the Ukrainians. And if the Ukrainians come, there's not going to be much of a country left. The trouble here is we haven't figured out that he isn't going to back down. Yukinski is basically saying the same thing. I'm not going to back down either. So either we get some cooler heads, or this war is going to last for years and years. And who is going to pay the price? It's going to be the poor people, especially in the third world. Look at Sri Lanka. Those people are mad enough now. They're having food riots. They don't have enough fertilizer. Where do they get most of their fertilizer? From Russia. The Chinese are going to have food shortages too. And when they have food shortages, it's really going to be tough. And we're talking about right now, Pelosi's going to fly to Taiwan, and the Red China is going to shoot her out of the sky. Well, I don't believe that, but if they're that dumb to do it, it'd be a great idea, because we'd lose one old congresswoman, and she'd start a war. World War III, we call it the Pelosi War. Crime and Italy. Doesn't anybody have any brains in this country? I'm flummoxed every time I listen or read the newspapers. They are just absolutely the dumbest people out there. And we all talk like we're going to win this thing. Well, the Russians are not going to give in easily. And like Bo of the Fifth Column always states, well, we're going to win because we have better stuff. Right. You have better stuff, but they have, it's like in Afghanistan. The Afghans had the time. The Americans had the watch. The Russians were there for 11 years. We were there for over 20. It cost us $1 trillion. And guess what? Biden makes that same boast every time about gun control. Well, they don't have airplanes. Well, guess what? The Taliban didn't have airplanes either, but they knew where the pilots' families were and where they were, and they knocked them out on the ground. God, give me a break. These people, we need to have a balanced economy. We have over 600 billionaires and 1 trillionaire living in this country. They don't pay their fair share. A lot of these guys make money in arbitrage. That's selling stuff, manipulating the stock market. And that's how they make their money. They're not building anything. And the problem here, we're not listening to our farmers. We're not listening to our scientists. We don't have any idea on how to do anything. God bless America. Why? We have some very simple solutions. We need to get fresh water into Central California. We have too much water on the East Coast. Arkansas, they had a flash flood. It killed a lot of dogs that were in the kennels there for lost and found animals. in the Humane Society. And they had a flash flood. They couldn't save the dogs and they died in their kennels because of the flash flood. We should be able to figure out a way to channel water so we can send it to the west. We could send it to Colorado, put it in the Colorado River, let it come down and feed the other streams like it was. We need to be adaptive, and we're not. We don't want war, but we seem to be pushing a guy who doesn't give in. And we listen to these people and their drumbeats of war, and I don't know. I'm an old man. I'm 69. I like to think that when I go, at least the country will be in a better place, but I don't think so, because we're not doing enough. We're not taking care of the people who need to be taken care of. We have a homeless problem because a lot of these people have used methamphetamine. They're all messed up. And we're not building shelters for them. We're not putting them any place where they can. We're not giving the earned income for poor people was a good idea. It helped them stay afloat. We need to do more retraining. We have the ability to train people. We did it in World War II. We got child care. The military has a great system for child care. Why don't we use it? Of course not. We just don't want to do that because then rich people have to pay more in taxes. And for once, I don't have too many answers to these problems, but I think we should start talking to farmers, truck drivers, some of the simple folk who have maybe a simple idea and have it done. We don't want to talk to people with simple ideas. And if you get in the scientists and some of the others, you'll solve a lot of these problems. Otherwise, you'll be like Elon Musk and we'll live on Mars. Right. This is enough for today. I hope you have a nice Sunday. It's Saturday here. And thank you. Please subscribe and please like.